Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. Jack Hallows, great to have you back. You were one of the first guests I had when I reworked the format for this podcast, and obviously not enough people got to go back and listen to that episode, so you were sort of a sacrificial lamb to reboot it. So everybody go back and check that one out. But you are one of my favorite people for video-based media. We're going to talk about social media. This is going to be a fun one. But, nuanced evidence-based media without maybe some of the things that you and I don't love about this stuff. And you're actually working on a chapter. You will write a chapter in a book that a couple of friends of mine are writing. I referred you to them, and it's going to be on social media for fitness professionals. So guys, stay tuned. That's going to be cool, but welcome back, my friend.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much for having me. Yeah, dude, it's been pretty crazy since we last talked. I think it was close to 18 months ago, maybe, that we did the first episode, and I think it was almost 3 years ago that I had you on my podcast back in the day as well. It was the first chat that we had back then, and yeah, man, I remember because I like obviously we're gonna chat content and stuff today, but that was one of the main reasons why I got you on my podcast originally was that obviously everything was pivoting towards video content and this very sensationalized kind of fitness content. And something I've always loved about your content and what it is that you do is that everything's written and everything's very much from it's all from experience, and it's all very much yes, there's a lot of evidence behind it, but you can just tell that you've been coaching for what, 2 decades now?
15 years of coaching. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. So it's everything that you're putting out is all just based on 15 years of being in the trenches, and then obviously your own research and evidence on top of that as well. And it's just, yeah, it was always really nice to be able to chat to you in DMs and stuff. The amount of times we've sort of sent things back and forth being like, hey, dude, did you see this? And it's being like, yep, sadly did, it's always nice to find other people in the space who have been, because I've been in the industry myself now coming up 9 years and stuff. So it's nice kind of being able to talk to people who have actually been doing this for a long time rather than, most of social media fitness content at the moment is people who they train a little bit for 6 months, they get a good quality phone, a good quality microphone, and they're like, hey, I can chat GPT some captions, I can, riff off some ideas, and here we are, unfortunately.
Well, you actually illustrated another point that is worth making. So if anybody is interested in my long form writing, I've been writing on Substack. I'll get pieces out when I think I've got something great. But one of the recent ones was about, how to get on more podcasts. But a key point of this is that just trying to get on fitness podcasts isn't necessarily as going to do for your career what you think it is. But this article, message me, I'll send it to you. It breaks down a lot of the ways that you will get people to want to have you as a guest. And you just illustrated one of them. You invited me on. It actually helped build a relationship early on. And as I saw that you grew, we're doing amazing things in this industry. We have that relationship. I know your character and integrity. Those check a lot of the boxes. That makes me go, I actually want to interview you. You're doing great with your media. And here we are again. So this article goes into more on that. Guys, if you want it, message me. But let's go here first. You alluded to this. Is social media getting worse?
It's funny. So I don't think it's getting worse. I just think that the bad side of it is being amplified more, if that makes sense. And the reason why I say I don't think it's getting worse as a whole is because I think that the better side of especially fitness social media is getting amplified more now as well, because I think there are the average person, right, that you and I train generally has more knowledge around nutrition and training that they might have done 10 years ago because there is so much more information out there. Now, unfortunately, there is so much more bad information out there, but I do think that the average person is getting a little bit better at ascertaining what is good quality information versus what is bad quality information. Now, do I think that the average person is becoming an expert off the back of what's being put on social media? Absolutely, buddy, not. And I sometimes have to catch myself with the content that I put out sometimes where I sort of get, I do a lot of Q&As on my stories and stuff, and I like to answer people's questions, and I answer every single one privately, and I choose 7 or 8 that are generally pretty hot topics to answer publicly. And a lot of the questions that I get asked, I'm like, damn, I thought everybody knew that already. Or, damn, I thought everybody had that idea. And I have to kind of remind myself that not everybody knows all of these little intricacies or even like things around how many times a week is beneficial to train and stuff, right? But I do think that people are starting to spot the quote unquote harmful stuff a lot earlier on in their fitness journeys. So, for example, I'm getting more people who have been working out for 3 to 6 months messaging me being like, hey, the carnivore diet isn't for me, right? And hey, ketogenic diets, they're probably not the best thing if I just want to lose a little bit of fat, right? Whereas I remember when I first started making fitness content and all this sort of stuff was getting pushed with this sort of new wave, it was a lot of like, hey, so I've started doing the carnivore diet 3 months in, or hey, I've started doing ketogenic because that's where I need to go for fat loss, or hey, I've given up all of these 4 food groups, or hey, I'm doing this 472 set bodybuilding program every week sort of thing. I feel like there's less of that going on with the average person now, which is really good to see. But at the same time, there are a lot more grifters. There are a lot more just quote unquote content creators who are not coaches, which I do think then muddies the space a lot with kind of things that might be seen as more nuanced because they take those complex topics, they remove all the nuance, and they try to just give you a black and white answer. Obviously, one that we've seen quite a lot go around the last couple of years is this whole what is it, the like 10-3-30 cardio method or whatever, where people just put a treadmill onto a 10-degree incline. They walk at 3 miles an hour for 30 minutes. And they're like, it is unequivocally better for fat loss than any other form of cardio. And it's like, no, it's just something that you can do regularly without impacting your recovery. And that's why it's pretty good for the average person, because if you are 30 pounds overweight and you have sore ankles and sore knees, you probably don't want to be jogging on a treadmill all the time or doing Stairmaster all the time. But that nuance gets lost because people know that everyone just wants this black and white answer. So they then just kind of throw this shit at the wall in hopes that it'll stick. I think that's where it's kind of going to get worse before it gets better. But I do think that a lot of these kind of grifters with these crazy ideas are starting to get outed a lot more quickly. We obviously saw what happened with the Liver King. We've obviously seen even people like Paul Saladino who have been, pushing their agenda for a long time now, having to start reversing and doing U-turns. And, he's now eating fruit and all that sort of stuff again. So I do think that, yeah, as a whole, like some of these major grifters are getting called out quicker. But I do think that the industry is like, and again, I hesitate to use industry because I see these content creators as almost industry adjacent sort of thing
Agreed.
rather than actually being like you and I who are the industry. These other guys are and girls are industry adjacent. But unfortunately, I do think they are muddying the waters quite a lot. So, yeah, as a long-winded way of saying, I don't necessarily know if it's going to get worse, but I don't necessarily know if it's going to be able to just move in a nice, better direction just yet.
To your point about the industry adjacent thing, I think at this as well. The problem with the way we see it is we're insiders, and for
Mm,
the newbie, the end user, they're going to look at, and we'll talk about Malibu FitMax and what happened to him.
oh,
They're going to
yeah.
look at someone like him and see him as, oh, this is professional, and they might, an early entry in, not be able to distinguish between someone like yourself and Max when there's a very big difference. And like I said, we'll get to that. I think where I wanted to, what's worth pointing out, and maybe you can explain everybody, the interest-based algorithm. Let's talk about what the interest-based algorithm is, how it's changed social media, and how it's driving it.
Mm. Yeah, so the way that I understand it is that, obviously for me, I'll be 30 this year. So I was kind of like coming into Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all that sort of stuff, in my teens. And kind of at that point, obviously social media was social media. You followed your friends, you followed your family, you caught up with what people were doing. You might go and follow a favorite celebrity or a favorite band. Like you're a Tool fan, right? Like, so you're probably like, big on, yeah, there you go. You're probably big on following the Tool members and stuff if they're on socials. I remember back in the day, I was a massive 30 Seconds to Mars fan. So like my whole following list was just my mates and it was Jared Leto, like that was my whole follow list on Instagram. Yeah, I've matured and moved away from that now. But like, that was kind of where that was what I used social media for at the end of the day. It was a lot of like just selfies and travel updates and stuff when I was traveling. And then, now social media, with especially with the rise of TikTok. Like TikTok kind of developed this big change where now it's more about what are you searching, what are you actively engaging in on social media. We've got this kind of like brain rot sort of doom scroll habit that a lot of people get caught into, and all it takes is for you to engage with one piece of media in a certain like kind of category or specific subset, and all of a sudden you'll be fed a lot more of that because Instagram now looks at your behavior. It's analyzing every little thing that you do on the app. YouTube is the same, TikTok is the same, and all of these social medias, they have their own individual algorithms that rank content differently. But for let's just for argument's sake use Instagram because it's the one that, you know, both of us are most across when it comes to social media content, you know, ignoring things like, you know, Substack and all that sort of stuff I see as a more like a different kind of content. But you know, it effectively, if I was to go on social media now, if I was to pick up my phone, go on Instagram, and send my partner a couple of like videos of like restaurants and cafes in Sydney that we want to go to, right? I live in Sydney, Australia. Immediately my For You page would suddenly just start spitting out cafes, start spitting out restaurants, places that I want to go to eat, food, this, that. And then if I decide, okay, I'm a massive Sleep Token fan, I want to go and watch some Sleep Token concert videos. I see your face there. I know you don't like them, but I love them.
Actually, I do. I bought 3 of their vinyls.
Okay.
Side quest.
Yeah.
Sleep Token, they're due.
Thank you.
I really struggled with the slow xylophone music that comes in at the start of half of their songs. But then you get to the really good stuff. So I'm like, I'm going to be patient with this. So I gave it a shot. I'm like, you know what? There's actually some good stuff here. So I bought the vinyls. They sound great. I do tend to die on this hill that I think that all of the bands traditionally that would have the gimmick of either wearing a mask or wearing makeup, Kiss, Slipknot, Ghost, etc., are generally speaking making up for the fact that they lack actually being that good, even though there are good classic Kiss, Ghost, etc. songs, right? So that's my funny little hill to die on. But please, your point.
No, man, it is fair. Everyone's allowed their opinion and stuff. And it took me a little while to get into them, I have to admit. But you know, again, same sort of thing. It's like I go and watch some concert videos, and all of a sudden there's 150 videos of Vessel doing his thing in his mask, you know, kind of singing on stage. So that's how the algorithms now work. And this is the thing, is that you can get caught in this massive echo chamber. If you have an opinion, if you have something that you feel is right, if you have something that you believe in wholeheartedly, you're going to engage in a lot of that content. And you can then get caught in this massive echo chamber of just being fed a lot of people who believe the exact same thing, which if you have a balanced view of anything, right? Fitness, politics, food, bands, all this sort of stuff. You have balanced views, you will get fed more balanced content, which is great. But if you are somebody who has an emotional tie-in to something, you are somebody who has an irrational thought process around something, then you are going to be fed more and more and more and more of that content. And that is where the algorithm then gets you, is that if you are somebody who is new to the fitness industry, to bring it back around to training, and you are somebody who's starting to fall for some of these gimmicks, and you are somebody who's engaging with a lot of this black and white content with ChatGPT captions that's basically just telling you what it is that you kind of want to hear rather than what you need to hear, you will be fed more and more and more and more of that sort of stuff, and less and less and less of creators like yourself and I who are trying to get across balanced, nuanced videos, written content as much as we can, right? And then when you see eventually, because it will come up because it's in a similar category, when you see the content that someone like yourself or I is sharing, you then become irrationally emotional about that content, and you get pissed off and you get frustrated and you lash out and you start engaging in these negative behaviors on social media. And then all of a sudden you now become entrenched in this other side where it's kind of like, yeah, for me, I have to do these things because these creators that I came into the industry looking at said this, and I refuse to look at things another way. And then social media starts to become a negative headspace for you because you're always logging in, getting pissed off at seeing people trying to bring balance and nuance. And, you know, it can obviously go the other way where people then, you know, are able to see a lot of balanced content and they're good, but it really depends where you start. And that's where social media can be it's why I don't buy into the whole social media is unequivocally good, social media is unequivocally bad, because it all depends on the user's behavior. And a lot of us don't take responsibility for what it is that we watch, what it is that we consume. And I actually saw Chris Williamson do a talk about 2 weeks ago now here in Sydney. And he posted this morning on Instagram talking about how social media isn't the enemy. It's what you consume on social media that is the enemy. And it's what your patterns and your habits and your behaviors on those apps allow you to see frequently that kind of then influences your continued behaviors and your continued beliefs. So realistically, the thing that I would implore a lot of people to do when they're consuming fitness content is try to actually give everything you're watching a chance and think about it. Try to remove yourself from this doom scroll, next behavior where you pick up sound bites, you pick up little clips, watch a video, and then if you have somebody that you like in on social media, like, and again, generally, I think people listening to this podcast will have pretty informed creators that they'll go to.
Oh,
Does you hope so? Yeah. Does the information align with what those people are putting out? So, a big one for me is that I post a lot of glute content, right? I often get Brett Contreras tagged in my comment sections, and Brett follows me. We've had a lot of conversations. He's a great dude. He's helped me level up my knowledge a lot as well. I've learned a lot from him. And I actually love that because every time I post something and Brett gets tagged, I'm like, these are people who are following me or have just found me who are also following kind of like the glute daddy effectively. And they're referencing it back to the guy who kind of like started this whole movement. So I'm like, this is good. This is people using critical thinking to go, that sounds interesting. That sounds kind of clickbaity at the same time because it's social media, let's face it. I wonder what Brett has to say about this. And then Brett comes out and goes, yeah, this is really good. This works. Or, yeah, I actually taught that to Jack like 6 months ago. We had a conversation about this sort of thing. And then people get reaffirmation of good information. So that's how I would be looking at using it, is trying to use your own critical thinking. And if you can't, then have people that you trust, people that you can go to, people that you can run this stuff by. Don't just blindly listen to sound bites and pick things up and then start using that as the sound bite in arguments and conversations and comment sections. Try to have your own critical thinking skills around content.
A quick break from this episode to shout out RP Strength and the RP Hypertrophy app. I have a big confession. I've never used a coach before. I've always auto-regulated my training for decades. But I've known Dr. Mike Isertel and Nick Shaw, the founders of RP, for years, and I'll get behind anything they create, including years of reading their books, consuming their media, attending their seminars, and having them as guests on the show. And I've been using the RP Hypertrophy app now for several months. And several things have happened. It forced me to make smaller and more gradual but better increases in weight volume across time. Like putting 5-pound plates on each side of a leg press. Like, who does that? Never before. Only 45s. It cut out the junk volume. It made my workouts faster and more efficient. I show up with a plan. I didn't have to think about what to do. I feel more accountable having a lot of my progress. And I don't skip things because I don't feel like it. If hiring a one-on-one coach isn't for you, using the RP Hypertrophy app is the next best thing to manage your gains and to take the guesswork out of your program. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can try it risk-free, and if you don't like it, they'll give you your money back. And I've also got you a $50 US dollar discount, so go to rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP, or go to the link below in the show notes. That's rpstrength.com/coats and use the code COATSRP.
and you said a few things there that I'll bring back to the surface. The intentionality of scrolling versus doom scrolling, because what's the incentive here? These social media platforms have become more mature, which means they rely more on advertising. They're monetizing this stuff. The user base isn't growing anywhere near as quickly anymore. So you have to feed a larger supply of content, and then you have AI and other people who just do this so professionally full time, very curated. And that's competing against, as you said, the friends and family. So if you think about it, why do we not see our close friends and family as much anymore? Well, if I think about my closest group of friends who are not fitness industry people, they tend to have private profiles. Obviously, I see them, but they don't post very much. So therefore, that stuff is A, there's not very much of it, and B, they aren't, they're posting pictures of their trips or their kids or whatever, which doesn't get the same kind of engagement as someone who is literally trained on hooks and virality and all this sort of stuff. So what is what are these feeds going to send you? These platforms want to keep you on them. They're incentivized to maximize ad revenue. So they're going to keep you there, and they're going to feed you the things, and you are training them. This is where the intentionality comes in. The stuff you interact with. And oftentimes, if you go in with a tired, stressed, burned out mindset, what works best? Negativity, fear, sensationalism, anger, outrage. You mentioned politics, whether it's nutritional tribal ideology, even like hypertrophy training right now is this contentious war zone of shit.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. But again, people understand that this is the sort of stuff that gets clicks and views, which rewards the algorithm, which rewards a creator with views and likes and followers. And
Hmm.
I think that can become a vicious cycle. And I think here's a good question because I have a way I go about this. But can someone clean up their algorithm if they feel lost within it and stressed out by it?
Absolutely. Absolutely, they can. Yeah. And this is the thing. It's like, again, it's, as you said, it's intentionality. It's what you interact with. It's what you engage with. And so this is the thing, right? So I do talks with a couple of friends of mine. We do these kind of like coaching camp seminars. And we did a couple in the UK last year, one here in Australia. We're looking to do a couple more this year. And they teach more the coaching side and the business side, and I teach the content side. And one of the big things that I kind of say to people with that is that, you know, what you're looking for with your content is a certain kind of engagement. Okay. You want people to be commenting. You want people to be saving. You want people to be sharing. Likes don't mean anything. Likes are the one that everybody obsesses over. Likes mean absolutely nothing to the Instagram algorithm. They are simply a vanity metric. So as a content creator, you want discourse. You want people commenting. You want saves because you want people coming back to it, and you want shares because you want it getting funneled around. And it's exactly what you just said there. A lot of this comes then from negativity. You've probably seen, like I have, the studies where by stronger friendships and stronger bonds are formed by a mutual hatred over something than a mutual love of something, hatred and anger and all these sort of stuff, they're very strong emotions. So a lot of content creators try to elicit that. And this is actually like a little bit of a tangent, but this is actually, in my opinion, the sign of a content creator who is genuinely in it just to create content and to create controversy versus someone who genuinely wants to help. Is the other day I fucked up. I really fucked up. I made a video about the Jubilee, Jillian Michaels versus body positivity activists video, and I thought it was a very measured response. I thought it was a very measured video that I put out. Apparently it wasn't. And I upset a lot of followers. I lost about 500 followers off the back of this video. The video itself, 24 hours, it did 150,000 views. It got a lot of likes. It got a lot of positive comments. But I also noticed there were a lot of negative comments. And the negative comments were they basically ranged anywhere from abusing me. And, I've talked very openly in the past about my struggles with eating disorders and kind of insulting me and trying to weaponize my eating disorder against me and saying, like, effectively, as someone who's struggled with those things, how can you make a video saying, like, talking about weight loss and all that sort of stuff? And I was like, okay, I think this has found the wrong people.
Yeah.
But, some of the comments that I got here as well were from followers who were saying, as larger bodied people, they felt sad that I'd made content that was so kind of black and white about weight loss and kind of ignoring some of the psychological sides of obesity, which, again, I don't think I did in the video, but seeing the feedback, I went, well, this isn't what I want from my content. I don't want this negativity. I don't want this discourse. I don't want people to feel upset. I don't want this visceral emotional reaction. So for the first time in about 5 years, I took the video down and I archived it and I removed it because I went, okay, well, I'm going to archive it so I still have the comments here and I can still refer back to this as a reference point as to do not touch on this subject again in this manner. And I just thought, what's the point in me having this negativity? I want my content to be something that is positive for people. I want it to be a net positive, a net win for people. So I owned the mistake and I went, okay, I'm going to take that down. A lot of content creators, they would see that and they would go, yes, because that's a ticking time bomb waiting to happen. If I'd left that video up, this was 3 days ago, chances are that video is probably on about 1 million views right now. And I've probably gained a lot of followers off the back of it and lost a lot of followers off the back of it. And it's created a lot of attention, potentially even reaction videos from other creators and controversy. And that's what a lot of creators want. So what you want to do when you are scrolling Instagram is, again, you want to get away from that. You want to start, the biggest thing that I do whenever I need to clean up my algorithm, this just sounds so funny, but like if I notice that my algorithm's getting very negative, it's getting very dark, it's getting very kind of like, oh my God, I've suddenly got all the World War III stuff coming up and I've got all these like Diary of a CEO sensationalized clips about everything that's going on there. I literally just sit there and I look up funny cat videos and I spend 5 to 10 minutes brain running the shit out of funny cat videos, cafes, travel content, all this stuff that I know makes me happy. And I actually have right here little notebook over here. And I have 5 things written down in this notebook that when I struggle with social media, because I tend to spend a lot of the time at this desk and I sometimes have a little doom scroll, whereby I know that if I'm starting to feel like shit as I'm scrolling social media, those are 5 things that I need to go and start searching. And a little bit of interacting, a little bit of liking some of those posts, a little bit of sending the odd meme to a friend here and there, your For You page changes very quickly. Your algorithm changes very quickly. And yeah, you'll still get the odd video that comes up that might elicit an emotional reaction, but it is that simple. And it is all, as you said here, it's awareness. It's exactly how we preach to clients when it comes to nutritional behaviors and training behaviors. Awareness is the first step towards change. And then once you have awareness, you can be more intentional about action. And once you are more intentional about action, you are starting to seek an outcome. And once you start seeking this outcome and you start seeing the progress of that outcome, that is where you are then motivated to continue having that momentum towards continuing that outcome and sustaining that outcome. So again, behavior change on social media is super, super important. And, you need to stop yourself from getting caught up in you've seen the bean soup theory, right?
I don't know.
So the
Explain it.
bean soup theory is there was a video that went viral last year or the year before. And it was this woman teaching you how to make bean soup. That was it. It was just a video about bean soup. And everyone was like,
Mm.
fuck yeah, bean soup. Sounds good. Coming into the winter months. Love that. And then all these people started commenting and going, I don't like beans. I don't like beans. I don't like beans. I don't like soup. And this woman made a follow up video and she's like, if you don't like beans, and you don't like soup, why are you sitting here commenting on the video? Why are you watching it multiple times to be able to engage in negative discourse? Why don't you just go to your search bar and type in a different kind of soup or type in a different kind of bean dish and get the recipe? Again, it's intentional behavior. It's your actions. You are the one controlling that. So if you are somebody who sits there and you watch a recipe video and you see that it uses strawberries instead of blueberries, but you like blueberries instead of strawberries, the rational fucking thing to do is make the recipe with blueberries and not complain about the strawberries. But so many people will get caught into that negative spiral of complaining about the strawberries. And it's the same in the fitness industry. It's like you see people go, okay, and look, I'm guilty of this sometimes as well because I get a little bit irate with some of the reaction content that I make. But you see people kind of sitting there and they're being like, I like X exercise over Y exercise. And it's like hip thrust versus back extensions for glutes. It's like both of these are fucking great exercises. They're hip extension exercises that train more of the mid to short range of the glute max. If you like one better than the other, it's okay. But everyone wants that like black and white sort of thing. So yeah, to kind of bring it back around to your original point, I think, it is intentionality, and you can't approach social media as just kind of a way to brain rot and doom scroll. You have to approach social media with more intentionality, have regulations around it, have parameters that you're going to use with it. And, like people would probably be surprised at how little time I now spend on Instagram when it's not creating my own content and sort of like looking at content that other people send me as a potential for reaction content.
Perfect. There's a couple things I do. One, I mean, just having friends who will send you good memes tends to work really well. My best friend sends me cat memes, um,
Hmm.
really good politically incorrect shit, which is funny, which is
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
We all have it, right? We'd all be in a lot of
Oh
trouble if
yeah.
that stuff ever got out there. And Lord of the Rings stuff. And so
Yes.
my Explorer gets me a lot of cat stuff, a lot of Lord of the Rings stuff. That stuff makes me happy. I make sure if I see it, I like it, I engage with it. I train it to feed me more, just like you.
Mm.
But the flip side of that is if I've got people in my world who start sending me negative, divisive, anything political, whatever,
Mm.
I let them know I'm not interested, right? I don't engage with this sort of stuff. This stuff doesn't interest me, and I don't engage with it. And then on every once in a while, Twitter's kind of the worst one for this, but you
Oh,
actually
dude.
have to do periodically, every time it feeds you a certain type of thing, you go the 3 dots and you go not interested, not interested in this, and you just do a scroll. You hit that 8 to 10 times. It's really quick, and that almost invariably cleans it up. Same thing on your Explore page on Instagram. It's actually
Mm.
very effective. If you open the door to it later, it'll creep back in. You may periodically need to do that, but I enforce those boundaries. Now let's go the bad faith actors. We've definitely seen a rise. Maybe that's the attention on them, on the status seeking bad faith actors in fitness.
Mm.
And while it's not ethical to look around and call everybody narcissistic, I know the signs of narcissistic behavior. We're seeing lots of it. So, I mean, two of the most prominent public examples in fitness, if anybody's familiar with them, maybe you guys follow them, maybe you guys like them. But the reality is Malibu Fit Max, who came out of nowhere, and Scotty K Fitness. Effectively, these two guys got outed for just really bad behavior in their past, major lies and foundationally to who they were. I'll tell the Malibu Fit Max story really quickly. This guy came out of nowhere, gained about 1 million followers within the space of 2 months. Positive vibes videos, walking through Costco. Instead of shitting on stuff, he's just like positive vibes. But verifiably, for a decade, he'd been making the claim in his bio and other places that he'd had an IED go off in his face, which is why his face was, well, let's say just funky looking, right? And he used that story. And then what happened is a lot of creators were just seeing his videos and they were stitching him and pushing him very aggressively, very positively out into the social media sphere. And he was rapidly gaining followers. Now, here's something that I know about how this stuff works. He is the construct. Nothing about this is authentic. He is the construct of some sort of brand or marketing agency that has been pushing him out very aggressively. Okay. He is created. This is the same thing that happened to Liver King. The Liver King was a marketing construct. And people are hearing this going, oh, what? Right. But of course, Malibu Fit Max, and of course, my buddy Goob has been one of the best things. He's one of the part of what outed Scotty K Fitness for all his lies and stuff. If you guys want to go to Goob's page, scroll a bit, you'll find all the videos. You'll see the saga. But outed Max as verifiably not having had an IED go off in his face. Malibu did come out and admit this, lied about how long he'd been telling this lie. And yeah, he'd fallen down drunk and busted up his face a bit while he was in the military. And it's also well understood that his face is just full of filler and other just like kind of bad cosmetic stuff. So, but again, here we have rapid follower growth. And so we have this incentive for people to lie. And I'll take this one step further. We have a lot of very mainstream figures who verifiably have built their followings off of like lies. Tim Kennedy, the UFC fighter, I mean, legitimate UFC fighting career, but he's admitted that he verifiably claimed to have won medals that he didn't actually win. And a lot of people who are around him in his combat days have basically debunked a lot of his claims. And there's also a really good article on The Guardian about Jay Shetty and his whole monk backstory. There's a ton of false claims and a lot of just bullshit in his backstory as well. Sorry, guys, if you like these figures, you can verify this stuff by going and digging in. So, I would love to hear your thoughts on why these incentives are so alluring for people to take shortcuts.
I suppose the biggest thing is it's it's just addictive to grow. I think that's the thing that people who don't maybe make content kind of obviously don't see is that everyone's got their dopamine rushes, right? Social media content is one of them. Doom scrolling is one of them. Some people gamble, some people, they have drug and alcohol habits, some people it's food. Everyone's got their kind of thing that gives them a dopamine rush. And for a lot of content creators, seeing that initial spike in numbers is the same thing. I had the exact same thing when I started blowing up on Instagram. I had very steady growth for about 3 years or so, and then I had one video that just went mega viral. And at the end of the day, I remember my mate Mark Carroll, who you know well as well, I was getting on a plane to the Gold Coast to go up for his birthday in 2024. And I got on the plane. The plane from Sydney to Gold Coast is about an hour flight, kind of door to door sort of thing. Turned my phone off for the hour. I was on, I think it was 75,000 followers. I just posted this glute workout video and I was like, cool, happy with the video, sweet. Jumped on the plane, got off the plane, checked my Instagram, and I was on 92,000 followers. And I was like, what the hell? I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, did somebody buy followers on my account or something? What the hell? And I then had a look at the video, and the video had already gone to 900,000 views in an hour. And I was like, what the hell? And I was like, this is crazy. So I put it on TikTok, same thing happened. It just blew up and it did the same thing. And it became addictive. It was then kind of it renewed that kind of fire under me to keep making better content and keep obsessing over content and doing that. And I think obviously just like anything, people take it to unhealthy extremes. People will do whatever they can to get the next fix. For me, I'm very lucky that, for me, I'm in this industry as a coach. I coach people. I help people. I have 60 one-to-one clients around the world at the moment. And it's always been for me, the big thing is just to have a coaching business whereby I can help at least one person at a time improve their quality of life. That's always been the reason why I want to be a coach. Comes from my eating disorder background. Always wanted to prevent people from ever happening what happened to me, and then seeing the other benefits that come along with all that sort of stuff. I was like, great, let's do this. But I think a lot of people, they just kind of, they get a taste for this kind of quote unquote momentary fame that social media can give you, and the dopamine hit of seeing those numbers go up. And then obviously you and I both know how lucrative sponsorships and things like that can be, especially supplement companies and as you said, marketing companies, advertising agencies and stuff. Obviously we go back to like probably the original one, V-Shred, at the end of the day, like he was completely a marketing construct. They just got this guy who was very good looking, great rig on him and stuff, was able to talk well to a camera. And they basically just said, hey, this is going to work. Let's do all this ectomorph, endomorph sort of stuff. And let's pump that out to everybody. And it doesn't really matter because they're getting into it to run this business. That is the main focus and the main goal. So, now we see, and it's not just, obviously there's people who lie about all these sorts of things. And, it is sad because I look at someone like Malibu Fitmax, for example, and I'm like, when I saw his content, I was like, this is a breath of fresh air because it's so positive and it's so, and obviously that's what the idealized sort of thought process was. But it was like, there's so much negativity in the fitness space right now. I was like, this is a real positive for the space. And then it was actually you sent me Goob's video and I just went, oh, fuck, here we go. Whenever I see like Goob, I'm like, oh man, I'm like, here we go. Like someone's being cooked. And I saw it and I was like, it's really disappointing, like, and it is for me, I don't really get like angry about this stuff anymore because I'm so aware of the fact that it happens all the time. And I think, all of these people do, unfortunately, they tend to make a lot of money and get a lot of attention before they have their fall from grace. Look at the Liver King. But, at the end of the day, the Liver King, sadly, I think he's done himself irreparable damage at this point, and it's a real shame for his family and for his kids and all that sort of stuff because I don't know what's going to happen there. But for me, I just look at it and I kind of think this is again where people just need to be able to use their critical thinking skills and look at stuff. And if it's too good to be true, it is. Regardless of what it is, whether it's somebody's growth, where it's somebody's profile, all that sort of stuff, if it's somebody's information, somebody's supplement, somebody's workout program, if it is too good to be true, then it is too good to be true. It is not an outlier. It is not something that somebody's magically cracked the code and all that sort of stuff. Even if you look at any other kind of social transactional economy, right? Like you look at actors, you look at musicians, you look at all of these kind of things. Unless you are a boy band like One Direction or a Justin Bieber or something like that, where you're targeting like teenage girls who kind of like get on this like fever pitch sort of thing, like, the Beatles being kind of the original one, most of these celebrities who make millions of dollars and have massive A-list profiles, it takes them years, absolute years of hard graft and actually getting pretty good at what it is that they do. People can say what they want about Taylor Swift, right? She fucking slaps. She fucking slaps, brother.
A quick sponsor break for my current aspiring coach listeners. This episode is brought to you by Train Heroic. If you know me, you know I only work with sponsors I use personally and where I know the people behind the product. Train Heroic is the best online coaching software in the industry. Not only is it a great platform for one-on-one coaching, it's fantastic for group coaching and selling standalone programs. Train Heroic is used by some of my trusted friends, so I switched my online group program here, and my members love it, raving about its ease of use. Having a dedicated app means far greater reliability for my clients and has been by far my best experience with any online coaching software. Train Heroic is a proven and stable industry leader, meaning it isn't going to suddenly disappear. One of the biggest risks in choosing an online coaching software. When you start a free trial today, you'll get 90 days free to experience why I love and trust this platform. You'll get full support from their team, who've been a joy for me to work with. And I trust Train Heroic and the people behind it. Here's how to activate your free 90-day trial. It's 2 important steps. Number 1, go to www.trainheroic.com/liftfree. Step 2, reply to the email you get. It should be trials@trainheroic.com and let them know I sent you, or go to the links in the show notes.
It's the example that came to mind before you said her. If anybody wants to go into her backstory about like the festivals and like the small gigs she played for years and just the degree to which she was engaged with her fan base and scale that up over time. Sure. And again, she's a lottery winner as well, right? There's a lot of survivorship bias in that story. But you're right. People very rarely come out of nowhere. Now, I can go back and every once in a while you're in the right place at the right time. And I'll explain Jay Shetty. If everybody remembers when Facebook made a big push to video, Why did they make the big push to video? Because our cell phones and networks finally had data plans, had the bandwidth to actually do more video. That was the constraint, right? So what happened? Facebook happened to start pushing out very polished video-based creators. And there were two that I remember were the faces of this move. Prince EA, who, to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing shady about him, and Jay Shetty, right? This monk with the blue eyes, soulful spoken word stuff. Well, turns out not long after, Nicole Arbor, a Canadian comedian, on her YouTube, you can search for this, she outed him. She went and found hundreds of examples of all these videos that Jay Shetty, these soulful spoken word, plagiarized everything off the internet, right?
Damn.
Got busted for that. And then
Didn't know
turns
this.
around, again, go check out the Nicole Arbor video. She's currently going after Jelly Roll. There's a whole big scandal there. Holy shit. But that's off track. I get a kick out of Nicole, Team Nicole. But after that fact, he starts crediting things. He never admitted wrongdoing, but starts crediting. Just if you guys want to go do a deep dive on Jay Shetty, just go ahead. I'm just not a fan. If you like his book, fine, please enjoy. But the stuff is out there. Lost my train of thought, but I'll let you jump back on.
No, look, and that's
Drop
another
it,
one
jealous
to kind of
guy.
look at is the sort of like plagiarism side of things as well. That's very rife in the fitness community at the moment. And listen, like everyone's done it at one point or another, being a younger content creator coming through. I remember back in like sort of 2020, 2021, when I first started making content, and I was learning from these guys and I was doing all these like courses and all that sort of stuff. And I just kind of like regurgitate the information that I was learning off other people's content or from courses and all that sort of stuff. And I got rightfully called out for it back in the day by a couple of creators and stuff. And I was like, okay, like, probably am doing that without even sort of like realizing that was what I was doing. I was just kind of like, oh, this is a cool format. I've learned this thing. I'm going to go say it. And then because, when you learn something, you often learn it from a specific person and you kind of learn the way that they explain it. And then when you don't actually understand it yet and you can't explain it in your own way, you sort of then revert to type a little bit. And I remember doing that a little bit in like 2021, all that sort of stuff, especially in the lockdowns here in Australia. I was making content at home and I was kind of like, yeah, I'm probably am actually, borrowing too much from other people and to the point of even 100% plagiarizing some content, and I remember sitting down and thinking to myself like, yeah, okay, I got to stop doing this. Like I need to find my own kind of unique voice and I need to stop trying to be the next XYZ, the next ABC, the next this, that. I need to be the first Jack Hallows because there's never been a Jack Hallows who makes content before. So for me, once I started really getting into content in kind of 2022 and Reels came in and I was making more videos and stuff, I made a real effort to try and find my own style and try and find my own voice and my own way of delivering content and the information that I was doing. And, now it's taken me a long time. I would say it probably took me until 2024, really, of experimenting and playing around with all this stuff to find formats that I just fucking love making and I really enjoy, and whereby people will come and they'll watch my videos and then they'll meet me on the street and they'll be like, you are exactly like you are in your videos. Just in the videos, you're a little bit more like, you don't look like you're anxious sort of thing. Whereas like when I meet people on the street, I'm like, oh, hello, sort of thing. But a lot of content creators in the fitness space at the moment, they're doing the exact same ChatGPT prompts, the exact same ChatGPT captions, the exact same copy paste trending audio, 7-second clips with the exact same taglines. And then they're going, well, why am I not growing? Why am I getting the odd viral video that bangs and then I'm not actually growing? Or why is it that I can't sign clients even though I have 250, 300,000 followers on TikTok or whatever? And it's like, well, because nothing you're giving is substantial information. Nothing you're giving is yourself. Every time I read one of your posts, I'm like, I read it in your voice. I've been fortunate enough now to do enough like podcasts, have enough chats with you and enough voice messages back and forth to know what you sound like. I read everything in your cadence. I read everything in your voice. Even when I read your podcast article the other day, I was like, yep, like that's Andrew sort of thing. People watch my videos and they go, yep, that's Jack, to the point now where people send me other people's videos and they're like, sounds a little bit like your video, eh? And I'm like, yeah, people are taking my scripts and my videos and my jokes and all that sort of stuff. But like, I'm not mad at that with people trying to figure out what they're doing, especially if I can see that it's another coach who's just trying to, start getting into the content game and all that sort of stuff. Where it becomes an issue is when people don't understand what it is they're talking about and don't really care whether it's something positive or something negative, and they're just regurgitating sound bites. And we come back to that, from the start of the podcast. Like, that is what so much of fitness content is right now. It's just sound bites, it's little clips, it's things that sound really good in isolation. And I use the Manosphere documentary with Louis Theroux. I don't know if you've seen it on Netflix. I use that as a really good example, because these guys who are shown in that, so you're like your Justin Wallers, your Myron Gaines, and all that sort of stuff, like, they are really, really adept masters of this, because they can give you a 10-second soundbite and you sit there and you go, huh, wow, maybe they got a point. Shit. And then Louis Theroux lets them keep talking. And they dig that grave, and they dig that grave, and they dig that grave. I watched it with my partner, and she's sitting there, and she's like, "What's the Manosphere?" And I'm like, "Oh, cool, this is gonna be great." So we sat there, and we started watching it, and there's this whole part where, like, I think it was Myron. He's talking about how women, they want a strong man who can lead and can help them make decisions and all that sort of stuff. And she's sitting there, and she's like, yeah, cool, sounds good, sort of thing, at least for me anyway. And then he keeps going, and he's like, and naturally, in return, guys should be able to sleep with whoever they want, and they should be able to do this, and they should be able to do that, and she should be loyal, but I don't have to be, blah, 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 blah. And all of a sudden, it's kind of like, yeah, that 10-second soundbite should have stopped there, buddy, because there's nothing that they can then kind of back it up with. And it's the same in fitness content. You've got these people who might sit there and they might say, like, the carnivore diet is great because you're just getting high protein and you're getting all these nutrients from the red meat. And as someone uninitiated, you actually sit there and you go, yeah, okay,
Well,
fair enough, sort of thing.
I'll call him out, Eddie Abu. And again, anybody listening who's a regular
Dude.
listener,
Is he still going? Is he still around?
I think so. I mean, he's got an expiry date on him too. I think his shtick's getting old. And I think everybody listening knows that I'm like, there are very, very, very few people that I will like name negatively. And I think they're pretty well documented as having some sort of major issues with them. And I'm comfortable that. I mean, I've given every once in a while, I'll give Joel Seedman a blast for his circus bullshit on
Yep.
whatever. And I usually leave him alone until he actually like kind of screwed around with Ben Bruno and Halliburton in that incident where
I could
Halliburton
see that, yeah.
the Game 7 of the NBA Finals and tore his calf or Achilles. And then obviously some of the names here. But I think this is Eddie Abu. Like people always will say, oh, he's sharing, he's just telling people to eat real food. I'm like, okay. I mean, like, and yes, I understand the pedantic argument over like what is real food versus, and it's like the evidence-based crowd. I think you guys actually get kind of pedantic and silly on that. I know what you mean, but it's not a good hill to die on, right? Most people actually do want to hear the message that, hey, we should probably eat more things that are minimally processed or more natural. And someone gets in the argument, well, whey protein powder is ultra processed. I'm like, that's not what we're talking about. You goddamn know that's not what we're talking about. So like, you guys are actually not helping. I will give the evidence-based crowd shit for this kind of pedantic argument. But again, Eddie's a perfect example. You get a few of these sound bites, and it's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, but just let him talk. Just dig into more of his stuff, and then you start seeing the complete batshit nonsense where this guy has. I mean, he's one of these people I actually think as an old bodybuilder, I think the steroids cooked his brain. I actually will die on that hill because then he starts saying really dumb shit. But he's a perfect illustration of this.
Yeah, and again, it's I remember seeing his content, and sort of at the start of it, I was kind of like, sure, restrictive dieting, eggs, meat, all that sort of stuff. I was like, it's nothing new. I think he was eating like sweet potato and stuff at the time as well, and I was kind of like, it's very bland, it's very old school, it's very kind of restrictive, but not excessive sort of thing. Like, I mean, excessive to a point, but like, for a bodybuilder, I wouldn't sit there and go, oh, that's crazy out there or anything. And then it's the likes start coming in, the engagement starts coming in, the comments start coming in. So it's then, how can I push this further? Okay, well, now I'm not eating any fruits and vegetables. Now I'm only eating eggs and meat. Now I'm literally eating this meat raw in a butcher somewhere. Now I'm only eating one meal a day. Now I'm fasting for 2 days at a time. And the goalpost always has to shift a little bit, because at the end of the day, you become entertainment. You're not really like education. You're not really business. You are just reality TV at that point. You are a self-serving social experiment, and it's down to people to be amused watching what it is that you do, because they want to find out what you're going to do next. Whereas, for someone like myself, when I make content, I want people to watch my videos and go, what exercise is he going to recommend to me to go and do? Oh, he's recommended me to do this before. that must mean it's pretty damn good because he's talking about the foundational patterns again. Okay, it's not sexy, it's not exciting, but this is probably what's going to get me results. And then in 6 months of doing that, they come back and they're like, yeah, you son of a bitch. Like I wanted to do all those crazy Instagram things, but I kept doing my Bulgarian split squats and I kept doing my hip thrusts and I kept doing my pull-ups and my presses and stuff. And now I'm pretty damn jacked compared to where I was 6 months ago. Yeah, got me, sort of thing. You know, that's what I want from my content. And that's proper like educational, like, you know, you talk about evidence-based and science-based and all that sort of stuff. Like, I'm the first person to sit here and say, I don't like reading studies. I don't like reading papers. I don't like doing all that sort of stuff. I didn't go to uni to do all this sort of stuff, right? You know, I'm a personal trainer who understands some of the more complex concepts, and a lot of them go over my head completely, you know? So yes, I will sit there and I will try when people send me things, I'll read the study and be like, I'll try and make sense of this. Or I'm very fortunate that I have friends who actually have these medical backgrounds that I can send the study to and go, hey, back me up on this. This is what I think. Where am I going wrong? Where am I right? Fact checking everything that I do. You know, it's why I don't really reference studies in videos. And so you see people doing it all the time. They're like, this paper and this and this and this. And I'm like, you don't have a fucking clue. Like, you know, the amount of times where I see people misrepresenting it, and I'm like, I couldn't read it and make sense of it in the most like perfect way possible, but I know that you're misrepresenting just by reading the abstract that you put on the screen here because it doesn't say that, you know. And it's like,
Hell,
for me,
and I'm not going to say names, but like there are people that we like and are on the good side of the industry or evidence-based, and every once
oh
in a
yeah,
while, they'll get called out for actually saying something about a study that actually isn't accurate. So, I mean, that can happen.
yeah,
But yeah, me too, same thing. I don't go hard into studies. There's certain topics that I actually like. I'm doing some research for a updated presentation on cross education training with injured limbs for an
yeah,
NSCA
cool,
thing.
yeah,
And so it's been a while since I've done the presentation. It's a bunch of new research. So I actually have all of these research studies like saved, and I'm actually going
yeah.
to go through and I'm going to update the presentation based on it. But I really love that topic. But okay, I know I cut you off. I really want 5 minute quick breakdown on your thoughts on stitching videos because it's popular. We know it gets a lot of clicks. There's a lot of negativity about it. There's some very smart people I
Mm,
know who hate it. I think you're one of the few people that has been able to do it with nuance and humor without being, hostile.
mm,
Because I see a lot of this stuff. It's a very quick and easy way to make content. I haven't
mhm.
gone the video-based route, and I just cannot see myself doing it. But I just want to hear your thoughts on, if you think that the stitch-based stuff is, again, getting too toxic and negative on the balance.
I really appreciate that you said that you don't feel like mine is because I do. I
One
agree
of the
with you.
rare.
I
You're
think
one of the rare. You're one of the rare
yeah.
ones.
And I think, I'm very fortunate that like again, my content has always tried to come from a good place. And sometimes again, I've made posts where I've looked back on it and I haven't actually posted it because I've gone, nah, I was a dick. Like, yes, the information that I put in is good, but I've been really harsh on the creator here and they don't deserve that. Sometimes I go in harder on people, yes. But a lot of the time with that, it's warranted. There was a creator the other day who posted, or the other month, I guess, at this point, she posted about like glute training. And she was like, the one thing you're missing from glute training is having an infrared sauna in your house. And I'm like, please post me any research that you can. Oh, wait, you can't because it was a sponsored post. Like this is the thing, right? So it's like, sometimes it's warranted. But for me, again, my thing is always, I want to focus on the information. I want to focus on what is being said. I want to focus on what is being shown. I do not want to focus on the person. I made a whole video recently about a response to a podcast where they were saying like, that if people have six packs, it's an ick. There's something wrong with them. They like have mental health issues and stuff. And people were commenting in the comments, then body shaming the people in the podcast. And I deleted every single comment that I could for
Mm.
the first 24 hours. And then I put a pinned comment and I said, if you comment this sort of stuff, just know that you are doing the exact same thing that these people are doing and you are part of the problem. Please do not do this sort of stuff because I never want anything to come back on anyone that's in the videos. And I try and tag everyone that I respond to as much as I can, even if it's not the most positive response, because I would love for those people to watch my video and go, once they've calmed down from oh, he reacted to my video, being like, actually, he's got a point. I've been tagged in videos. I've been stitched. I've got things wrong before. Cody from N1 educated me on something once by stitching one of my videos. And I was like, damn, I knew it. I knew it. I was like, I was on the fence with this sort of thing. And I was like, he got me. And he taught me this little nuanced thing. And I was like, sweet, off the back of that, I was like, thank you so much, dude. And that's the response that I always want people to have to my stitches and stuff when I do it. And listen, 100%, it's getting toxic. There are a lot of people who do it wrong. There are a lot of people who do it badly. There are a lot of people who attack creators and attack people and attack technique, and they just use it for views and they use it for, at the end of the day. Whereas for me, it's like, I just started getting sent a lot of videos when my page started to blow up. And I was kind of like, the easiest thing for me is just to stitch the video and give my response because 20 people have sent me this same video or whatever. So I started doing that. That started getting popular. And generally, most of my responses are pretty positive. Every now and then it's kind of like, hey, that's not quite correct. Let's think about it this way, sort of thing. And a lot of the time I've then had people who I've, tagged in the caption or whatever comment and be like, oh, okay, I didn't think of it that way. I'll give it a go. Don't necessarily agree off the bat, but sure, sort of thing. But yeah, it's very easy for people to fall into the negativity trap because again, fosters stronger relationships to have a mutual hatred than it does a mutual love for something, unfortunately. But, I think there are a lot of people who do it really well. My good friend Brad Jensen, sober bodybuilder, he does it really well. I love
Great
his
friend of
stitch
mine.
content.
Great friend of mine. I'll get him back on
Brad's
soon.
awesome. Yeah, he's a phenomenal dude and his content's great. I think he's one of the best examples of being able to also handle some of the negative topics and kind of talk about those in a manner whereby, again, he's not attacking the person, he's not attacking the content, he's just kind of trying to re-educate, and really, yes, it can be easy sometimes to get overly passionate about things and attack and get negative and approach it with vitriol. But like for me, I just want to re-educate. I really just want to be able to help people learn more. And I'm not saying that I'm the expert on anything because I'm absolutely not. In the grand scheme, the grand like microcosm of fitness and all that sort of stuff, I know a very small percentile. But the very small percentile that I know gets my clients really good results and has generally fostered a method that has worked for a large percentage of the people that I've worked with over my career now. So for me, I feel very confident in the education that I put out, but I'm also, when people message me and tell me that I've got something wrong or tell me that they have a different opinion, I love those conversations too, because I love to be educated and I love to be told, actually, this probably makes more sense, or this makes more sense, or this makes more sense. And then I can learn, and that means I can give better information to other people as well. And that's always how I want my reaction videos to come across. So as a whole, I think stitch-based content is fine. I don't see an issue with it. But again, it's all in, everything with social media is intent. It's all intention, it's all action, and it's all the outcome that you're trying to get. If you're a young coach out there who wants to make stitch-based content, make sure that you have some shit to back it up when you're actually saying things. Don't just jump down somebody's throat. And make sure that your intention comes from a good place. Make sure that the outcome that you want is to educate people and help people, not to shit on someone else to try and get above them. That is always the wrong way to go about it. With content, with business, with life, with friendships, do not shit on other people to get to where you perceive that you want to go. Big up other people. You build great relationships. You foster everything. And the amount of times where I've reacted to someone or they've reacted to me, and then we've mutually followed each other and we've been able to foster a relationship, it's been great. So yeah, I think stitch content can be a positive if you approach it with a good intention and from a good place.
I love it. Quick thoughts. I've really put trying to grow further on social media kind of on the back burner. I see what tends to happen with the bigger figures of the industry, just some of the vitriol that gets directed at them. And I mean, part of this is story and narrative in my own mind to justify the fact that I haven't gone to like really jump hard into the video skills. I think there are ways to do it. Absolutely. I'm also constrained by time bandwidth, and I would rather, write really great stuff on Substack. I hope you guys will check that out. Message me. I want to do these podcast episodes, which are more in-depth, share, support friends like you, other amazing industry professionals you mentioned. Mark Carroll, I had him on not too long ago. He was great. I love the peel back to look at kind of some of the struggles that he's experienced despite how successful he's been. And I'm busy full-time coaching in person and working on some other projects that, I've probably defied needing social media to actually serve me. I never really did because I've always been so busy in person. It was just a playground. And I rode a wave. I was lucky to be part of like the writing, that Twitter-based post. And I would rather reuse old ones or write new ones than what it would take. And for me, I don't think I would deal well with the downside of the getting stitched and attacked and what have you. So, that's a personal preference of mine, but I direct people to watch what you're doing. So everybody can get you, if we're going to talk about social media, on Instagram at Jack Hallows Fitness. Go follow Jack
That's
there.
correct.
I really, really appreciate it. And then stay tuned. There'll be a book coming out. You'll be featured having written a chapter. So that'll be all over everybody's social media soon.
Yeah, I don't even know if I was meant to be allowed to talk about that. So
That's fine. We didn't say
hopefully
we
they're
didn't
right.
say what we didn't say what yet. So these are pals of mine. I may or may not be writing the forward to the book, so we'll see. Because they asked me to do the chapter on social media, I'm like, hell the fuck no. But I know someone will do a great job of it.
No, I appreciate it, brother. It's always a pleasure to chat. And yeah, man, I'm very glad that even though you didn't need to do social media, you did do it because otherwise we'd have never connected. So yeah, thanks for having me on, dude. Anyone wants to find me at Instagram, please come and have a look. And yeah, ever want me to react to something, as long as you're willing to let me react to the education and not the person, you can send me the video in DMs. It's always welcome.
Thank you, my friend. Talk soon.
Cheers.